What should the people do on the year of the Jubilee? It is a time to return to one's land and family. So what does it mean for the brothers of the province to go back to one's family? It means going back to the roots, going back to the story of the province.
After Columbus reached the New World, the Dominicans soon followed, arriving in Central America in 1510. They eventually formed a large community in Mexico City around 1526, and by the late 1700s had grown to take responsibility for a string of old Franciscan missions in Baja. Although the conditions were harsh and the government hostile, the Dominicans served valiantly throughout the decades. The friars suffered and many died. Eventually, the missions fell into ruin. Exhausted but not defeated, some Dominicans pushed north, following in the footsteps of St. Junipero Serra and his Franciscan brothers, with one Dominican, Father Ignacio Ramirez de Arellano, making it all the way to Monterey, California by the late 1840s. Unfortunately, the situation in California wasn't any easier. It's hard to overstate how precarious and dire the state of the church was in the American West during this time. Father Ignacio Ramirez was alone, exhausted, and cut off from his Dominican brothers. He was now one of only 16 priests serving all of Alta California, an area spanning over 520,000 square miles, with some priests too sick to celebrate Mass. But unbeknownst to Father Ignacio Ramirez, Rome had heard of the plight of Catholics in California, and his Dominican brethren were on their way to help. It was the height of the California gold rush, and two Spanish Dominican friars, the newly ordained bishop, Joseph Sadoc Alemany, and Father Francis Sadoc Villarasa, were on their way. Along with them, a Dominican sister, Mary Gomer, set off to establish the foundations of the order in California. Together, they carried a mandate from Pope Pius IX, where others are drawn by gold, you must go to carry the cross. The three Dominicans left Europe in haste, and the race for souls was on. Preceding them was a dedicated Dominican from New Jersey who was already serving in the United States, Father Peter Augustine Anderson. As Father Peter Augustine was arriving in California in July 1850, Alemany and Villarasa were departing Rome, traveling through France to rendezvous with Sister Gomer, then continuing to England before crossing the Atlantic to New York on a ship aptly named Columbus. Progressing south, they landed on the east coast of Panama, traveling by canoe and mule for 11 days before entering Panama City in November 1850. Poetically, they boarded another ship named Columbus, bound for San Francisco, arriving on December 6, 1850. By the time they stepped onto American soil, they had been traveling for 6 months and over 11,000 miles, arriving just 87 days after California officially became a state. But the joy of arrival was soon cut short when they learned that Father Peter Augustine had contracted typhoid fever after heroically serving the sick during the cholera outbreak. He had died a martyr to charity just 9 days before their arrival. After mourning the loss of their brother, they went south to Monterey, where the Pope had instructed Alemany to establish his see as bishop. Alemany made the local church of San Carlos his cathedral. Waiting for them was the ever-faithful pastor of San Carlos, Father Ignacio Ramirez. It was January 28, 1851. The preaching mission that began with St. Dominic in 13th century Spain, the mission that followed Columbus into the New World, had now come full circle. Father Ignacio Ramirez handed back the responsibility for evangelizing the American Wild West to a new generation of Dominican preachers from Spain. Where so many came searching for gold, these Dominicans had come to carry the cross.
The order was founded for the salvation of souls. mission is really part of who we are as Christians. Evangelization is always an important need in all times and in all places. To a certain extent, the proclamation of the gospel will never go out of fashion. When there are believers, then we have to nurture their faith. We have to accompany them.
From those humble beginnings 175 years ago, the Dominicans continue to expand their preaching mission, radiating the joy of the gospel in cities, on campuses, in universities and schools, through media, missions, and special apostolates throughout the Western United States and beyond. And just like Alemany, Villa Rasa, and Gomer, the friars of today are ready to carry the cross once again.
In a very profound way, going home to one's family is going back to the roots, the family of Dominic, the very institution of the order.
The recent growth in Dominican vocations is strengthening the order to meet the challenges of this new age, a time when souls are increasingly led astray by the new gold of technology.
In general, the people who are helping us, the help that they give us is like an investment whose return is something that goes beyond the horizon of our vision.
Join us as we prepare for the future of the Western Dominican province, and let your prayers and generosity advance the next generation of Dominicans as they continue to evangelize America's Wild West by boldly proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ.